You're listening to NFT 365, the first daily podcast on NFTs with your host, Fanzo.
So one of the things that I've been hearing a lot about, actually, hold on. Welcome back to another episode of NFT 365. We're gonna kind of build on, or create some, momentum today. I know yesterday's episode was a little heavy, and we're still dealing with a lot of the fallouts of the wallets being exploited, and I'll have more details, more episodes on that. But I wanted to, kind of build on, some of the trends and some of the things that I think we're going to see continue to kind of evolve in the space, but also, some of the narrative that I find just very interesting, not only on Twitter Spaces, but in the news, and even just in overall trends as a whole. With the Ape coin that came out, of course, with Bored Ape Yacht Club, that, of course, I mentioned, I did a whole episode on, is this going to be a trend, or is this going to be kind of the trendsetter, right? Or is it going to be a copycat or a trendsetter? The idea of tokenomics, the idea of, residual rewards is something that, that is something that's definitely interesting and different. But there's also the narrative, and actually I believe I heard this. I think it was a TikTok. I can't remember who it was. Somebody on TV, and they were referring to the ape benefits being very MLM like, right? That the fact that those that are already in that have the Bored Apes, they're getting a heavy percentage, so they're getting it's making the rich more rich, and the 1% get more rich, but I actually look at this whole, tokenomics a little bit differently, because we have the Adhd Coin, of course, here on Rally. And this episode isn't actually about that, but more so the things that we're seeing from a standpoint of, where does utility go? Where does, projects kind of evolve? And one of the things that I love is trying to spark innovation, but also spot innovation. And at the same time, look at things that everyone is doing, but also try to decide who is doing it in a way that is either creative or more natural to their community, right? And I would just say Manushka, who I co-host Alpha Mondays with, so it's Shira Lazar and Manushka and I co-host Alpha Mondays on Twitter Spaces. And Manushka has brought up this project, which used to be called Hape Beasts. Now they're just called Hape, and talked about their innovation. And this was a project that overnight they had their video go viral on kind of their preview video. And they all of a sudden went from a project that was excited to be launching to the overhyped project, right? And people were very worried. Are they the next Metaverse? Are they, where does Hape kind of come in here? And last night on Alpha Mondays, and for those that are playing along at home, in our pop star, today's word is alpha. So if you jump over to the website and put the word in alpha, that'll be one of your pops for the month. And if you get 4 of them, of course, you'll become a pop star. But Alpha Mondays, their head of social came over there, and they talked about how they're actually be doing a free, they're not even calling it a mint, right? A free sign up to airdrop what they're calling badges, so that people can, join their community and get some utility, but not the same as if you're holding a Hape. And I've been saying this for a while, and this has been on my soapbox. Actually, I think it's episode 1. If you go back to episode 1, one of the things that I said was a concern of mine was, what is the barrier to entry? If projects that everyone wants to be a part of are 4 ETH and higher, which means they're going to be, let's just say when ETH is good, 12 to 16,000 US dollars, or on Solana when it's, at that higher, price point. If it prices a majority of people out, but yet those are the ones that people want to be a part of, those communities are going to have a problem. They're going to get not only stagnant growth, but they're really going to become siloed to only one type of people, one type of users. And so I've said for a while that, I love the spin-off idea, but I also like the expansion projects. And I'm also a fan of, the mutants and projects that have kind of that evolving, piece. But a lot of that is still just rewarding your existing holders, right? And I think one of the things that Tokenomics enables, for those that are part of our community here with the podcast, right? You don't have to hold one of our NFTs. But maybe you want to get to know this Web3 space a little bit. Maybe you're going to jump in, and rather than buying an NFT, you're going to buy some Adhd Coin, over on adhdcoin.com, and now that's going to be your way to unlock additional Discord channels. You can use that to share it amongst others, that if you think someone else deserves some coin, you can send them some coin. You can buy services on our site. You can, there's some things that we're rolling out in the near future around merchandise and ways that you can use your coin even in some more creative ways. But I actually look at when I look at the overall landscape of where we're at right now, right? It's very easy for us to want to throw out what has been kind of the norm so that we can have new things being added to our ecosystems, right? And Hape, I enjoyed their version of these badges, and I'm definitely going to check it out, and I'll put a link in the show notes. But one of the things that I'm looking at is, rather than everyone feeling like you have to throw out the old ways of doing it, why not look at projects that launched in the fall that were successful, and they did one thing as utility, right? Whatever that may be. And one of the things that I think we can do is how do we refine that? Now, I think of this as both a NFT project launch, someone that's a creator, and also someone that is a collector. And I think oftentimes I share these advice and tips here on the podcast. And I try hard to make it appeal and, kind of hit both the creators of projects as well as the collectors. Because if you are a collector, you want to know the strategy and the nuances and the things behind projects that people are creating and what we hope creators can implement. But then we also want to see it from the other side, right? If you are creating a project, you want to make sure that you understand from a collector's point of view. Now, I've been saying this for a good while, that I believe in this space more so than any other early adoption space that I've ever been a part of, that you should first be a collector before you are a creator. Now, that doesn't mean you have to have hundreds of NFTs, but what I mean by that is you really want to start to splash around and kind of understand kind of the nuances, some of the things that are happening, but you also want to kind of really just kind of experience it from that side. Because I will say there are a lot of my friends, a lot of people that are in my circle, that they loved kind of the collector high and their connection to this whole world, because they were very into the collecting world. And then they launched their own project, and they learned that it was too hard for them to kind of do both of them. And so now they're really only focused on their creating of their community and their utility for their project, which is perfectly fine. But if you don't have that collector high to understand those nuances or that side, not only is it going to be harder to survive in this space, but it also kind of is robbing you of kind of that joy of minting your first NFT or selling your first NFT on OpenSea. Because when you do it after you've launched a project, all of those things are a little bit different in perspective. And so one of the things that I'm excited to kind of look at from innovation is I think we do have to relook at whitelists as a whole, right? Or pre-sale lists, and think about it from the standpoint of what if we were building a pre-sale list or a whitelist for months rather than for a couple of days or a week or so? What if we were able to start providing utility for those that were on whitelists along the way, to where they no longer have to question, do they want to buy this NFT? They already have seen what we can prove that we can give, right? And I will say, that's partially what I'm doing here on the podcast, right? Anyone that listens to the podcast, whenever we drop a collection, a 10,000, PFP style collection, which will happen, sometimes this year, for those that have listened to the podcast every day, I don't have to tell you that I'm going to show up and I'm going to be consistent. I don't have to tell you what my values are, the things I care about. I don't have to tell you, that we're going to create a great Discord. I think our Discord is amazing right now. And big shout out to all the team that's, helping maintain this amazing Discord that we have. And for me, that's what this is, right? When I decided, I was either going to launch a podcast or a project in November, right? That was kind of where my head was. And I decided, well, if I launch a successful podcast, then the project I launch will be next level. But if I launch a project, it's going to be a little bit early for me. Probably not going to have as much time for the podcast or for the research or for all those other components. And that might be like kind of a little bit of like a fallout. It might be one of the things that we have to kind of address, and things might be a little bit different. And I will also say, like, one of the other pieces that I just want to like think about when we're looking at like trends and innovation is, like, I really think we can come up with innovative ways to design our Discords. I think we can come up with innovative ways to get people to sign up for email newsletters that are holding your NFTs, right? Like, that's something like I want those that hold NFTs, I want them to be in the know, right? Like, I'm not going to market them or sell them with that email, but I want to make sure that the communication that I have is getting to them, right? It's why we have a newsletter here for the podcast. And those that haven't signed up for our email newsletter, Kevin on our team, our designer, does a great job on our email newsletter, kind of giving you an overview. Like, I like to think of it as it's the TLDR, right? Too long, didn't read version of like what happened in that week. Also touching on like kind of some of the NFTs we bought, links to some of the podcast episodes we bought, maybe some updates on some events that I'm going to, and maybe even some like alpha that you can't get anywhere else. But, like, that to me, like, part of it is like, I really look at the projects that are willing to look at what they believe works and kind of figure out ways to tweak it or connect it to their community, their way, I believe, are going to really thrive in this current NFT landscape. The other thing is that, one of the things that really hit me, right, with my wallets now locked, and me losing all of these NFTs, one of the things that I realized was that the NFTs that were stolen, I was able to report them. I filed a police report. I was able to report them through the proper channels, and so those NFTs will no longer be able to be sold or transferred or bought on OpenSea or on LooksRare, where I reported the problems. But that doesn't mean like the crazy part about that is like I don't win, they don't win, right? Like it's really a no-win situation. And so the question becomes like, if we can't beat like the hackers, what are some things that we can think about in ways that we can actually add value, right? Someone in our Discord asked, like, why can't they like burn that NFT and then reissue to the person that got their NFT stolen a new token with that same art? And I thought that was an interesting use case, and I plan on reaching out to my friend M over on Crypto Chicks and just getting her take on that and feedback. And I think a little bit has to do with the contract, also like who's deciding who's getting something stolen from versus not. Like there's a lot of things that go in there. And part of the beauty of the blockchain is that there's a finite amount, right? So if all of a sudden and technically there would still be the same amount, right? We burn the one that has been frozen by the platform. But can we burn an NFT that we don't individually own, right? Like there's some, if it's truly decentralized, technically once the founder is no longer, once it's minted, then whoever actually owns it should be the only one that can do any of those type of things with it. But, there are some ways that I think we can get creative, especially in this like hybrid 2.5 world. And I will also say, like, I tweeted this out, and I knew that the person that was someone that I really align with, and I think is actually one of the smartest minds in our space, and she goes by Adult Arts on Twitter, and it's Jen. She was previously the community manager over at Playboy Rabbitars. I think she's just a wickedly smart human. I think she's really has some like strong convictions for stopping like kind of like the regulation and the polar, just the idea that everything has to be labeled and controlled, and like the power of the decentralized world. But I will say, like, a lot of the things that I've been going through recently with the nuances of decentralization is that we're going to be moving like in this like hybrid world of Web 2 and Web 3 for a good while. We're also going to be, even when we get to Web 3, I think we're going to be in a hybrid of like decentralization, right? Like OpenSea is not decentralized, right? LooksRare is not decentralized. Coinbase not decentralized. They all have a central repository. Like Coinbase, we don't even get our seed phrase, right? So, but the reason I bring that up is like, it's easy for us to like look at the problems that exist in decentralized or centralized and just assume like it's one or the other. But like I started thinking, right, like as I was going through, losing these NFTs that I lost, and a lot of them that I lost, I had never actually listed for sale ever. They were NFTs that were extremely important value to me. They were my profile photo as well across the board. So like for me, like just like looking at it and saying, okay, rather than like us looking at like the nuances of like what that means, like how can we innovate or get creative in that space, right? And it doesn't mean like just using a hardware wallet, right? Like because there are some like pain points of that is very difficult, right? Even the advice that I believe that, everyone should have 3 wallets, right? One that is your kind of burner wallet that you can connect to all different websites that doesn't have anything in it. One that is more of like your transfer flipping wallet. And then one that is more your, long-term hold diamond hand wallet. But even like that advice, like now I'm telling you to have 3 wallets, 3 seed phrases. Like where are you even installing those 3, right? Like you're going to have 2 browsers in your phone. Well, that means like the wallet on your phone isn't the same as the wallets connecting on OpenSea on your computer. And like, for me, that's been a lot of work just the last 48 hours. Like I had to build, I had to create some new wallets. I had to connect my Nano to a different wallet. I then realized I signed up for a bunch of whitelists with my other wallet ID, which I don't want to anymore. I also know that people have been sending me ETH and things to my, my .eth address. Well, now that .eth address is actually attached to the wrong wallet, to the compromised wallet. And I was like, man, all of these things that go on. And it like dawned on me like that, this is an opportunity for us to get creative with every aspect of what we're doing, how we're doing it, how we're sharing, even how we like kind of like authenticate, or we like, once we know that someone is a holder of an NFT and like we welcome them in the community, like what does that mean? How do these processes work? What are the kind of the nuances that we have around us? And, I will say like, to me, this also includes like, how do we look at everything from tokenomics to, the metaverse, right? Like I really think right now, like I'm slightly annoyed and I'm excited about, my good friend, Kathy Hackle, who is known as kind of the godmother of the metaverse, is going to be on the podcast very soon. But like the more like quote unquote, like previews or things that are coming out on the metaverse, the more I feel like they all kind of look the same and they all kind of feel the same and they all kind of are making the same kind of offerings. And like, and I'm not saying that's like the case. We had some place here on the podcast and I thought they did a really great job of kind of showing that they're doing mobile innovation in the metaverse. But I think at a bigger level here, like I want to look at, I'm documenting all the things that we've been dealing with, right? Everything from how we launched our NFTs to how we're doing our pop stars. And even like, okay, how do I deliver these better, right? What kind of tools do I need? Because there's a lot of developers, a lot of really smart people in this Web3 space. And I believe one of the cool things that we can do is that we can start to like tweak things that we already love rather than always trying to create something brand new, right? We don't need, like the perfect, coin airdrop every time, right? Like maybe it's the matter of like, how do we do update metadata on our NFTs, right? Or how do we even share NFTs outside of Twitter, Discord, and social audio? And then the other thing I just wanted to kind of share, I think in this like overall big picture of like alpha and things that how we like bring things to life, right? The Bored Ape Yacht Club, not only do they launch the Ape Coin, but they also had their kind of pitch deck roadmap was leaked online, and many people have seen that. And there was a lot of discussion I had in a Twitter space the other night about like, a lot of this space is trading on FOMO or trading on anticipation, right? It's why the price of the floor goes up on NFT projects before the art reveal. And then once you get the art, there's nothing like, what are we anticipating? So the prices go down. And then like, we're anticipating the first utility drop. And there's like, but I really think we can do better than that, right? Like just because we know like what is coming, right? We can educate people on what is coming. Like maybe we don't understand all of the nuances or when it's actually coming. Like I actually like this current trend where not all Discords are public, right? And you have to be following or maybe the Discord's only going to be dropped during a certain amount of time. And when we think about these things, like I will say, like when we're evaluating these NFT projects, it's one thing to like evaluate them from a collector perspective, right? Which is what I'm doing. And if you want to check out all the ones that we've been minting here on the podcast, you can just go to NFT365podcast.com/mint365. But like, it's one thing for me, I'm advising Meta Athletes, right? Which is the project that we minted for Mint 365 yesterday. It's a project with Drew, the producer of the podcast, and his co-founder, Kevin. And one of the things that I found was like, when you see innovative things as a collector, and then we look to implement it as creators of an NFT project, there's a lot more goes in, right? There's a lot of these like extenuating circumstances. And so I think one of the things that we can do better as collectors is make it known, not only like why we love a project, but like what about these projects? What are they doing? Like I love when someone's like, this is the best Discord ever. I'm like, oh, what about the Discord makes it best? Oh, it's the people. Probably there's some great people in every Discord. Like what about the Discord's design or the way the moderators run it? Like we need it, because we are all owners. And if we are all owners, because NFTs are shifting the power of digital ownership, then we also have to take on the role of owners to publicize, to make it known, like the things that we like, the things we don't like. And I've even noticed that here on the podcast that sometimes I stray away from that, right? Like I don't like the idea that, whitelists, the only way you can get on a whitelist is either grinding a Discord or being friends with the founders. Like I actually think you should have some ways that not only giveaways, but there should be ways that you're like, hey, this is someone that aligns with us, or anyone that is part of this. And like I like the whitelists that are based on other projects, right? If you hold a World of Women, then you'll be on this whitelist because we like that project. And of course, I know the strategy behind it, but I actually think we need to take those things even like to another layer. And then I also think, as owners, like there's one of the discussions about like IP rights, but like what does that really mean to us, right? Like how many people are taking their favorite NFT project and using that IP for something, right? I'm doing it, right? I have a couple of shirts that I made up that are with the NFTs that I own. I've played the music for one of the NFTs that I own here on the podcast. I'm also, I'm getting, that kind of stinks. I'm getting 3D art generated I was getting it for a psychedelic anonymous NFT, but that was one of my NFTs that got stolen. So now I have to rethink what that art's going to look like. Another thing was, even for some of the, of the events or the projects that I work on, like there's one thing for me to make it about like myself. There's another thing for me to use like the IP. Like for example, like even for like the show graphic for this NFT, right? For this podcast, like I could technically, because I own the IP and the digital rights, I could use the NFTs that I own the IP rights in my logo for NFT 365. And we will have a new podcast logo sometime very soon as we kind of evolve and adapt. And I like to kind of change that main logo up, as we kind of figure out how these things are evolving. But the part that I just want to kind of stress is that it's one thing for us to value a type of utility. It's another thing for us to actually use it, leverage it, and make it work, right? Like one of my things that I used to value that now I don't value as much is that like I used to love the idea that this NFT is going to unlock your ability to buy additional NFTs. But really what that means is like you're paying to have access to keep paying for more things. Like, and what is that? Like, how do I know that the project that I'm being bought into blindly is going to suggest projects that I also love, or even the artwork is going to be something that I love, right? And I've noticed that. Like I will tell you, like there's two NFTs that were in my bag that they enable to buy additional NFTs. I haven't been a fan of the ones that I've been able to buy. The Recur Pass, right? I have the Recur Pass, which gives me access to some NBA and sports NFTs that you have to have the pass to have access to. I haven't been very excited about that, but I bought the pass like 5 months ago because that was what we were all doing. And so I say all of this because like it's easy for us to like, the question I love that I get all the time, right? It's this whole idea of like, they're like, Brian, like, what do you think brands are going to do different? Or what is a year from now? Like, how are brands going to feel different? Or what is this space going to look like in a year? And I keep saying, I think we're going to be in a very similar place as far as culture, as far as hacks, but I think we're going to find ways to be really innovative. We're also going to really demand a lot more of our NFT projects. And I know that scares a lot of people, right? Like if you launched an NFT project a year ago, you weren't held accountable for shit. If you launched it 6 months ago, you were kind of held accountable, sort of publicly, but we didn't really expect you to deliver anything in like a timely manner, right? Then like the next step that we would go, like maybe a little step further, like the beginning of the year, all of a sudden we were like, okay, the projects that we're buying into, we do want to know a little bit more on it, and we want to like value these things. But I'm really excited for like, and I'll kind of pull this together in this way. There's two things that I'm really excited for in this space: collaboration and co-creation. And that is where I think some innovation in this space is going to happen. The idea that I believe existing projects today that are both very strong, two projects that have strong communities should come together, launch a new NFT project that isn't just for their existing holders, but to welcome in new holders that share in the common values of these two new brands, right? Like it's almost like how do we bring Adidas and Nike together, right? They're on the same basketball court when, depending on the athlete, depending on what shoes they wore. But like, why don't we find ways to like merge a lot of these communities and not have to like reinvent everything, right? And I also think this co-creation idea, one of them was, I was asked this question yesterday, and I've been pondering it for a while, but someone was like, Brian, when you launch, a PFP or NFT project, and it probably won't be till late summer, early fall, is it going to be a brand new Discord, or are you going to use your Discord from NFT 365? And all those questions are things we'll have to answer down the road. But like for me, part of it is like, why do I have to keep joining new Discords over and over and over again? When like, what if we were able to create some like environments that allowed multiple communities to live in one Discord? And yes, we could have like our, limited access to certain channels based on the NFTs we hold. But then there's some like a public access for everyone that holds these like 3 or 4 NFTs, right? And like, I can see that right now, like just like thinking about that out loud. Like, I can see that in some projects that I just love. And like, I'm like, wow, these two projects should come together and have like a mutual Discord, because I think they would be amazing. And there's just a great overlap. And so the challenge that I'm going to have is like, in this world of ownership, we need to let go of control a little bit. We need to think about why do we, although we are like kind of focused on this like, control, this, decentralization and digital ownership. And we're talking a lot about like, this idea that we're kind of putting it to the man, or we're kind of anti-establishment, or we're using crypto. One of the things that we have to think about is like, why do we need to control a lot of the things? Like we're going to take away the power from the platforms, and then we're going to give them the projects, and we're going to have to be in like the projects are going to own all the conversations and all the collaboration and all the facilitating of connecting. And so I'm really excited for like what all of that means. And I also looking at that from a standpoint of like, what other projects do founders hold, right? When I'm researching founders now, I'm actually looking at their NFT bag, right? Like what are the NFTs that they belong to? It's going to tell me a lot about them, right? I actually kind of agree with the idea that, dating profiles should actually, I like the idea of a dating profile having, your 4 favorite NFTs on there, right? Because I'm going to get to know, your 4 favorite NFTs are going to tell me a lot about you. Yeah, they're going to tell me a lot about you. Even if you just said your 2 favorite, let's say your 4, because it'll be enough to be like the breadth. And I challenge you, those that are listening to the podcast and you listen to this episode, jump into our Discord or on Twitter, just use hashtag NFT365 and like share your favorite NFTs and ask people like, what do you think about, like, what do you think are like some of my values or the things that I'm about, or what if you saw these 4 NFTs, what does that say about me? Because I think we need to rethink the variables that we're controlling today, both as creators and as collectors of NFTs, and start to think about like, what does that all mean? Because there's also something to be said about like, why do we have to follow this exact rule when aren't we in this game to make up our own rules and reimagine the future? I'm going to let you ponder on that. We'll dive deeper in some future episodes. As most of you know, this podcast is super powered by the Adhd Coin over on Rally. Check it out. We have some amazing benefits, and you can go over there, jump in our Discord. We only have a limited amount of the NFTs that are left for our Mint 365, but plenty of coins for people to be a part of. And every weekend you get rewards. So every Sunday you get, based on the amount of ADHD Coin you have, you'll have rewards that are automatically deposited into your account, and you can do with them as you may. And lastly, I'll just say, one of the things I've been playing with is the idea that, creating the podcast and kind of segmentizing, I don't even know if that's a word, adding segments to the podcast that allow me to, kind of put a little bit, some containers into the different pieces. And so we are going to start kind of rolling that out, over the next couple of days. And I'm excited to kind of explore what that means, right? So we'll I'll kind of kick it to a segment where maybe it's the Mint 365 segment where I talk about the last 3 projects that we minted. I'm gonna kick it. I'm gonna switch, kind of roll to a segment where I'm gonna share some alpha or some trends, or maybe I'm gonna kick it to a segment that is the voice of the community or whatever it may be. But I'm always constantly wanting to tweak and test, not only with NFTs but also with this podcast. And so for those that are listening, like, I would love to hear, either, the same places that everyone kind of knows to communicate with us. Like, let me know, like, some things that you would love to see, or some people you would love to see interviewed, or, some ways that you would really enjoy hear us adapting and evolving. And I would also say, like, stay tuned for maybe some collaboration and some co-creation here on NFT 365 with not only other podcasts and other creators, but maybe even launching some other things that kind of go along with this. But until tomorrow, my friends, make it a great day. Cheers.